And the recording has started. So this session is called Virtual Clubs, Yes You Can. And we are here today with Christy Brewer. Christy has been an educator for 16 years. She's also got 7 years of virtual teaching experience. She's currently a social studies teacher at TXVA High School and serves as the Student Council Lead Advisor. She's here today to share with us her knowledge of creating and running virtual clubs for students. And she's also going to share with us how to keep club members active and involved. So welcome, Christy Brewer, and let's enjoy her presentation.
Thank you, Jean, so much. Welcome, everyone. This is my first time presenting, so bear with me. I am used to being in a room with students, not with adults. And as we all know, sometimes when we get along with our colleagues, it can be a little unnerving. So thank you so much for that warm welcome. I want to show you today how I have been successful with Student Council, and it did not come without some lumps and bumps, and I will address that as well. But the reason why I feel clubs are important is despite the jokes that we go into teaching for the money or for the summers off, truthfully we go into education so we can work with students, and we love working with kids. And in today's schools, we're so busy with trying to meet the standards, working in our TEKs, getting them ready for their standardized testing, that sometimes we don't get to connect with kids on a level that maybe we want to. And I feel that's where clubs bridge that gap. And I want to show you today that no matter what your setting, that you can have a successful club with your students and keep them engaged and really enjoy working with kids in a way that you went into teaching to be able to do. So thank you so, so much for being here with me today. I recently, just this summer, went into a new role. So I am stepping out of social studies teaching and going to be working with the math department, and I'm very excited about that. As Jean told you, I have been teaching for 16 years, and the last 7 have been virtually. The purpose of this, though, today is to talk about my experience as the Student Council sponsor, and I'd like to address that and how this presentation came to be. At the end of the 2013 school year, 2012 school year, I came off my first year doing virtual club, and I sponsor Student Council. And at the end of that year, we received our student parent satisfaction surveys. Mine was great. Everything was wonderful. I did a really good job with my classes. However, I received one review regarding Student Council, and the parent gave me a rather negative review. I was a little shocked. I'm not used to getting those. And some of it was unjust, but there were kernels of truth in there as well. I had not put a great deal of time into my club. I had not been working with the students like I should have. I was getting by. I had stepped into a leadership role that year. I had a standardized test to worry about. I had multiple classes. I had multiple preps, and the club was there. I was excited about it. I wanted to do it, but I bit off a little more than I could chew, and really I didn't do enough planning up front. So I did some self-reflection. I did a lot of really big changes, and that's what I want to tell you about today, what I did to make that year successful. A little bit more about me. My husband is active duty Army, and we have 2 beautiful girls. They both were just in a pageant here locally and did well, so that was exciting. My colleagues that are in the room that will see me in another week will get to hear all about that. And then I have 2 crazy Springer Spaniel puppies that I share my office with, and that's one of the joys of getting to work from virtually, is that I get to have my office mates with me all the time. So today's agenda, and I will try to keep time in my vision, I want to go over how, before you get started with your club, once you get started, some resources that I've been successful with. Now, I'm well aware there are multiple other resources, and if people want to share, please do. How to keep your clubs active throughout the year, some do's and don'ts that I have found, and then, of course, review any questions that you might have. So let's just get started on this, because this is what you are here for. So before you get started on your club, the biggest thing I can tell you is plan, plan, plan. What type of club are you interested in sponsoring? Any type of club you want to do will work. anything will work virtually just the same as it will a face-to-face setting. There are traditional clubs like I sponsor, such as student government or stucco as we call it, but if you have an interest or a hobby, that will definitely work. The only clubs that don't work are ones that you are not an active participant in, or one that you stepped into because you felt maybe you needed to or you were required to. You need to be passionate about whatever your club is. Clubs are supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be something that you enjoy. So if you are engaged and you're interested in the topic, you're going to get students that have the like mindset. So make sure you sponsor a club you're interested in. You need to ask yourself, how will your club meet? I know some of you are still in brick and mortar settings, so will your club meet face-to-face? Can you meet virtually? Will you meet asynchronously? And what that means for those of you that aren't in the virtual setting, that means that your club never comes together and has a live session, or is it going to be a blend of many of these? I know some schools are going to more of a blended thing for clubs, and how this would work is that you might have a face-to-face session once a month with your students, and then the rest of it be done virtually or asynchronously. What works for you? And I know as teachers, when we first get started, I can relate. I had all the time in the world to put forth with my clubs and my activities with my students. Then I got married, I had kids, and they got busy, and all of a sudden that time after school that maybe I had for clubs became a little bit more valuable, and I wasn't able to put as much into it as I would like. But it goes back to number one. If you do something you love, this becomes something that you enjoy doing. And if your district allows you to maybe meet with students out of a traditional time setting, maybe you can meet with them at 7, 8 o'clock at night in a virtual setting. Or if you're meeting asynchronously and posting things to a website, all of those become options for you. So don't just shut your mind down to, I need to meet with these students face-to-face, and that's the only thing that will work. Will you have a co-sponsor? As teachers, we're used to going in a classroom, shutting the door, and we're the only adult in charge. One of the biggest lessons I have learned is co-sponsors are invaluable. I work with a wonderful lady who also takes an active role. I still am the lead on the club that we sponsor, but she is the one that takes care of our newsletter that we set up. So we both took a role and we both became active in it because I realized I bit off more than I can chew. I had these great ideas, but I wasn't necessarily able to put them all out there the way I wanted to without some assistance. So don't be afraid to look for a co-sponsor. And another thing, work with someone that you really enjoy working with because you'll work together a lot. What resources will you need? And I'll go over some that have worked really well for me. How often is your club going to meet? It's great to say that you're going to meet once a week, but is that realistic for you? Is it realistic for your students? Think of the kind of students that you are bringing into your club. If they are high-achieving students in AP courses and honor classes, once a week may be a little bit tough, especially if your club is really active. So my club meets bi-monthly. And there's some exceptions to that, of course, when testing and things of that nature come around, but that's what we found worked the best. And then do you need bylaws and club guidelines? Your club, if, for example, if it's guitar playing, may not need these things, but if it's an NHS club or a student council club, you may need some certain parameters. Again, it also involves the kind of students that you're working with. If they are receiving community credit or something of that nature in your club, you probably need to have that stuff worked out. And I did that this summer after I received my review. I got together with a focus group of students, and I actually met with them over the summer. So yes, I voluntarily worked with my students over the summer, but it was probably one of the best things that I did. So let's jump right into some of the resources that I use. Some of them you are very familiar with and you probably use. I really just want to show you how for the club setting you will be successful with them. The first one that I use is Microsoft Office. I use that for calendars, and I'll show you what that looks like. Google Docs is fabulous. If you are not familiar with Google Docs, Google Drive, and I'm sure everyone knows Gmail, but if you have not explored this further, I really encourage you to do so. It's something that works well in the classroom, and for clubs, it's been invaluable, and I'll show you how that works as well. Some of the other resources that I started using over the last year, and some I'm exploring for this year, Edmodo, live binders, free conference call, especially if you don't have access to like a Blackboard room like we do here. Social media, I know that's a tough situation for some of you. Some of you are like, oh no, don't even want to touch that. But we have to think about the audience that we're using, and I'll show you how we did that successfully. And then Skype in the classroom. I thought this would be a great one, especially for those of you that are maybe in a situation where your club meets solo and does not have a broader audience. For example, my student council, we have a national group that we joined through Edmodo, so my students are able to explore things on the national level. But if your club does not, Skype in the classroom is a great, great resource for you, and we'll talk about that. So I want to jump into these a little bit in more detail so you can see how using these resources can work well for you in this setting. So the first one, I set this up through Microsoft Publisher. If you don't have access to that, there is wonderful ways of getting calendars for free on the internet. You could also do it through Word and even Excel. So one thing that I have found is that you need to create a calendar. Let your kids know where they are going every month, what is going on. You can send these to students virtually through the email, through social media. I post it in all those places. So as you can see, the calendar is important to me because I want to tell them what we have going on that month, when our meetings are, our contact information. I put all of this on the calendar for the kids, and then I make it available to them. So calendar is something you should create early on, and my calendars have gotten better as the year went on. My first ones were pretty much black and white, but I'm a color person. I like to shoo shit up, and so this reflects me. And one of the things that we did was we wanted to incorporate the activities we had going on every month, because it's one thing to set up your club, it's another to keep those kids really, really active. So you see right here on the calendar, I have what's taking place, when our meetings are, and some of those things that my club did. And I'm going to share that with you very shortly once we get into keeping them active. But I wanted to show you the importance of a calendar. So I recommend you do it in the Microsoft Suite if you can. I set it up for the whole year, and then I would go in about 2 weeks before I was ready for it, add the information. Some of it will just copy onto all of them once you make your initial one. And other things like my leadership challenge and when the meetings were, things that were going on school-wide like spring break, I had to put in there. But calendars are a great way to keep your kids informed as to what is taking place. This is Google Docs and Gmail. Now I know everyone's familiar with Gmail. I recommend that you set up an email account for your club. This will help you get feedback from students not involved in your club if you're doing some service things like we do in student council. Gmail is also great for you to have a place to set up your Google Docs that I use quite a bit for my clubs, and I'll tell you about that. Now, one thing I do caution you on, if you're going to give student members access to the email, you're going to give them your password, I really recommend that you limit who all has access. Give it to the sponsors. In my case, I give it to the club officers, being the president and VP, or select members, students that you know are responsible, that maybe can handle the email questions coming in from members and non-members. I don't recommend that you share the email password with everyone, except for a select group. You may initially just want to keep it open to your sponsors as well. But if you set up a Gmail, you have a place for people to pose questions. You have somewhere for students to go to send things. And we use it for when we would do some of our contests. The students would send it to our Gmail account. So I just wanted to go into Google Docs. Many of you are probably familiar with these, but if you're not, just give you a broad idea. The folder feature, I'm an organizer, so I put things into folders. So if it was with one of the contests, I'd make a folder for that. Documents, if you're giving students access to this, and a great thing about Google Docs is that you can use this and give club members access to just a document in there or just a presentation. So for example, my secretary in my club may not have had access to my Gmail account, but I'm able to share a link with her in presentation that she could go in and alter it as well. She could work on creating it without compromising anything else in the account. So if I have some club information, maybe you collect money of some sort, and I keep that information here centrally in a centralized location. There's my words. If I do that, if I just give club members access to certain things, they aren't able to see maybe some confidential information. You also have spreadsheet. I keep this if I set people up on my email distribution list. I keep track of that. It's all very similar to Microsoft Office. I know more and more schools are going to Google Drive, Google Docs. It's free. It's available to us. So you're probably familiar. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but if you're not, please explore this valuable, valuable tool that's out there for you. And my favorite one is Form. I use Form throughout the year in multiple ways, but it's great for surveys, gathering information from club members or non-members if you're doing something that involves the student body or you're working with people outside of your club. It's great to send them the link and let them actively participate in it. And I'll show you how I use this as well. I guess I put it in here before I thought I did. All right, so I wanted to show you how great the Google Forms is. For example, our student council has a leadership roundtable, and this was something that we met every 9 weeks with administration because student council is a representation of the student body. So our student council officers, not our members, because we open up membership to everyone, our officers would meet with our school administration. And what we did was we came up with topics that would be presented at the meetings. Our members came up with the ideas, and that's what I have shared with you. Let me just get my little pointer out. Our members came up with ideas that we sent out to the student body. And then we asked the student body, what topic do you want us to present to administration? We are representing you. So we sent this link out, and we did it through our homerooms. You could do it through an email distribution list. You could do it through homerooms. If your club is meeting face-to-face or you're in a brick and mortar, you could share the link there as well. You could ask them to put it on the school website or maybe the school Facebook page, whatever you have access to. So we asked students, what do you want us to talk to administration about? What is important to you? And we created a survey. So I love this feature. It's wonderful for getting feedback. I also used it to do student elections. The kids came in, they heard what our candidates felt passionate about, they heard what their platforms were, and then they went and they voted on who was going to be into office. And what's great about Google Docs is then I get this information, it compiles all the data for me, and I clearly saw who the winner was. I have access to it, and then if I'm ever questioned about it, or if there's ever something that comes up, I can show this is what was created. I have that resource available to me. So if you're not familiar with it, please start exploring it. It's wonderful for your clubs. It's also a great way to get feedback maybe mid-year. Ask the students how they're feeling about the club. Don't wait till the end of the year when you get that black eye and says, you really didn't do a very good job. And the parent, while it hurt, they had a valid point. So I cannot tell you enough how wonderful Google Forms is. Another one that I'm recently starting to explore is Edmodo. In Edmodo, I belong to a national student council group, but I've also created one for student council that we're going to be putting in place this year. Edmodo, if you're not familiar with it, is great. You can create folders in there. You can poll people. You can do an assignment. Maybe there's something that your club needs to do. You can have chat in there. This could take the place of some of the others. And if you're in a brick and mortar setting, you might just use Edmodo for your club to give out information and things of that nature. Like I said, it's something I'm new to using, but I think it's a great place to keep all of your information in one spot. So I wanted to share it with you. Another resource that we put together last year, and I want to share and give you a moment to look over this, was livebinders.com. Now, LiveBinders is a free resource up to so much space. And this is where we created all of our information for Student Council. My co-sponsor updated it for us. So what I want to do is I want to give you about 2 minutes. I'm going to share the link with you in the chat box. If you click on the link in the chat box, you can actually go to it. I'll get off the microphone for about 2 minutes and let you go explore it and see all the information that we were able to put out there for our students. I'll be back in just a moment. If you'd like to give me a green check when you are done exploring it, I'll know majority is ready to move on. Now, I know we have some people still exploring it. It is livebinders.com, and you just set up a free account. Now, LiveBinders is just like having a 3-ring notebook in front of you. I will caution you, it can be a little bit cumbersome, so we will probably start switching over to Edmodo. But last year, this is what we discovered. We were able to put everything in there. So I'm not entirely sure. It's a work in progress, and that's one of my do's, is be flexible, be ready to make some changes. And even if you're not ready to make that jump to sponsoring a club, you can find ways to use these resources in your classroom. But LiveBinders is it's one of those, you can't really break it, you just have to learn how to use it. But it is livebinders.com, and let me put that in the chat for you, and we will move on. And you just set up a free account. And so far, I've created other things in there as well, and I have not surpassed my free limit yet, but by all means, please check it out. It's a great resource for you to use and put all of your stuff available to your students in one place. Okay. Some other resources I wanted to share with you is freeconferencecall.com. If you do not have access, such as to Blackboard, you might have meeting with your club officers or a small group of students using a conference call. This is completely free as well. You just create it, and then everyone is on the telephone line. What you will find, though, the more people you have, it can be a little cumbersome. So this might be really good resource for those of you that are meeting with a set group of students. If you're in, for example, a musical club, getting on the telephone line, putting it on speaker, and one person playing at a time, you know, you are only limited by your imagination and what you can come up to use with it. This is great to use if you're doing a summer planning session with some students, you're doing brainstorming, you're getting together, if you don't have access to something with a virtual whiteboard for you. Just wanted to provide this resource for you. And a new one that I've discovered, I've been on Skype for years, but Skype in the classroom I thought was another great way to reach out and really get access to students worldwide. So if you were doing a chess club or a knitting club, a shout out to Mr. Green, you could get into Skype and look for other students virtually around the world that have similar interests and set up your club with them as well. We have been successful in reaching out to student councils in other parts of the world. We've been able to talk to students in England, for example, in Australia, and see how they do it differently based on their government systems and stuff. So it's been a great learning resource for our students because we want to make sure our club stays active and we don't just put it together and then we don't revisit it. So those are some more resources for you. And then finally, I wanted to touch on social media. I'm well aware social media can be a tricky thing to use, but we have been really, really successful using it, and it's something that the students are on. Now, for you, you might want to explore what your school district is comfortable in. You use. Some teachers like to create a Facebook account that is strictly professional, and it is aside from their personal, so that is a possibility for you. But what we did was we created a student council page in Facebook, and we opened this up to all students. We told anyone could be a member on this. The sponsors, we regulate this. We keep an eye on it about every other day. We go in there and make sure nothing inappropriate is being posted, and we've been very successful with it. But we also, like everything else, you have to be actively involved in your social media. You can't put it out there and never look at it again. So what we do is we put the documents in there. We put things that we feel maybe a student missed. This again works really well if you are not truly in a 100% virtual setting. You could upload files in here, you can create documents in Facebook, and then we like to put fun things in here as well. So since it is in social studies, naturist kind of club, we put this little fun thing in there. What period of history do you really belong in? This was just something really cute and fun for the kids to do, and we had over 100 students tell us what period they thought, and you can see that they put a little bit of information. It's just a great way of relating to our students. It didn't take any of my time, but I was like, oh, look, that student liked this, or that was really funny, they liked that show from that time period, so they had an interest in it. And you get to look at your students in a way maybe you don't when you're teaching them math or English, something of that nature. We also put our calendar out there again, and we put our surveys available to our students. All of this is out there. We put it on the social media so our kids can. It is a closed group. You have to have permission to be a part of it. That's one way that you can keep it secure. We also let our family members, we let our adults know that if a student is a part of this, that their information will be out there. We make that well known what they're getting into, so if they're not comfortable being in this environment, they are not required to. It's completely optional. And then we use Twitter as well to make announcements. Hey, don't forget the meeting is coming up. So these are available to you. Don't be afraid to use them. If you're worried about mixing professional and personal, set up a professional account and use that when you are going to your club site. But Facebook is wonderful for you to put documents in there, for you to share your calendars, your surveys, tie in all those. We also gave them access to our live binders here because that's an open document for any student to see. So we let them have access to that as well. There was no secrets in live binder. If there's something that we feel only club members or officers need to see, we usually put that in our Gmail or Google Drive account and only share it with the interested parties. Those are some of the resources. I want to share with you how to keep your club active throughout the year. And this was one thing that I really, really had to take to heart because I realized that I set it up okay and I put some things in place, but then I wasn't keeping the club active. And there's many, many ways to do this, and I just wanted to show some. Some of these might work better for your club than others. We did a Decorate Your Desk contest. This involved the whole student body. So since we are a virtual, we don't have a Decorate Your Door, we changed it to Decorate Your Desk. We had over 50 entries for it. We even had a faculty and staff winner. It was really exciting. Some students decorated for the season. Other students just said, hey, this is how mine looks all the time. But we involved the student body. And here again, using our Google sources, we had them send their entries to our Gmail account. So if you're in a brick and mortar setting or a virtual setting, this is how they can send it to you. They can attach their picture to you, and then we can vote on our winner. We shared this information through our homeroom setting. Another thing that Student Council created this year is we didn't have the school newsletter or newspaper, and we created that. My co-sponsor was the one that oversaw this, but what we did was we wanted our students to get involved. We wanted to involve the whole student body because that's what we do. We represent them. So we asked them to name our newsletter. Again, we use that Gmail account. I just created a tiny URL, and we had them send it to, we had them send it to the Google Forms that we created. They put their idea in there. So we set this up through Google Drive. That's why I said that's such a great resource. Another activity we use to keep our students active is we created the Where's the Mustang? This is a play on the Flat Stanley project that you see in elementary schools. What we did was we created a Mustang that students could pull and they could print it out, and then if they were visiting the Great Wall of China or just going to Walmart down the street, they could show where our Mustang was that day. And we would show these students doing their activities with our Mustang We would show this in our newsletter. We would also post it to the Weeble site that we are in the process of creating, things of that nature. So that's how we shared where our Mustang was. And we just made it into something they could print out. That way we were not sharing any student contact information. We were not sharing addresses. And our Mustang was a lot of really cool places this last year. So we're hoping to keep that going. And anyone can participate in it. But it kept our club active. We were always excited to see, where is our Mustang now? What is he doing? He's been skiing. He's been to multiple pools throughout this summer. He has been to Colorado. One student even took him over to the Middle East, so he has been all over the place. We always get our administrator approval before we send anything out there. Everything we do, we ask for administrator approval. They pretty much let us do all of these activities as long as we are not compromising FERPA or anything of students. We're allowed to do this, and we never ask students to share any personal information out there that they are not comfortable with, and we never share personal information in any of our sites. That's why if they choose to do Facebook, they're well aware of what is out there. So we never say you have to be a part of it. So yeah, we do. We get parent permission before we use any pictures. And that's in a form that they submit with us when they turn back their Mustang. Also, as a school, most schools have a parent permission for pictures that they sign at the beginning of the year, and I always double check that and make sure that I have it on file that I can share their information. Absolutely. And that's where having a co-sponsor really helps, because if you're by yourself, that can get a little overwhelming. Some other things that we did, that we created this year, was we did the Mustang Leadership Challenge. Now this was something to our club, but we opened up our club to everyone. So Mustang Leadership Challenge, that was just a play on our mascot, was something that the kids had to do every month. So for February, it was show some love for Valentine's Day. And so what we asked them to do was we used our Google survey again, and we wanted them to give a shout out to the teacher or administrator or school staff that did something for them. And this was our first one. We didn't have a huge amount of participation, but we did have some. And then we sent the teachers what the kids said about them, and it was really, really fun. But it was our leadership challenge because these are students that are involved in student government, and they are our student leaders, if you will. So then we developed it for every month. For April, to show you another one, we did an Earth Day challenge. Do something for the environment. So what I did was I provided the students with a link of 101 things that you can do for the environment, and then this one was done internally. We brought this back to our club, and we shared what we did. Some students planted trees, others picked up garbage, others set up recycling, and we would ask them, what are you doing for our club this month? So it's just another way to keep them active. And I put this information, I just copied and pasted this from the calendar. So I put it out there to them. Our one for March was a healthy eating challenge. Try something healthy. And Ms. Spencer and we shared some of our favorite healthy recipes with them. And then the kids would tell us, yeah, okay, I love kale or I hate it, whatever they decided to do. I also wanted to share with you about our elections, because some of you are probably thinking, how in the world would you do elections in a virtual setting? Well, this is, again, a work in progress, because last year, we opened up a session like this, and we made it self-paced. We put the speeches up, and kids could go through them and read what each candidate had to say, and then they could go and cast their vote. It worked very well. However, the kids were like, next year, I want them to be able to hear me. So we will create a situation where they can go in, they can listen to the candidates, and they can also do self-paced to go through the various rooms and see the speeches. So one thing I encourage you when you start to set up your clubs is be very open-minded to changes. I thought it would be great. Everyone could go and do it at their own pace, their own time. But no, they wanted to hear the candidates as well. They wanted to see their picture up there. So that was something that became a work in progress. If you're meeting asynchronously or you are meeting in a situation that you don't have a room such as this, you could, again, post it to Facebook. Some of our candidates did. They were comfortable doing that. Other candidates didn't want to, and that was okay. But we did that. You could also, absolutely, you could also create student videos. You could do that by posting them, creating a YouTube site just for your club. I think it's a great idea, Alicia. I'm going to write that down and steal it for this upcoming year. With the elections, if you're holding maybe officer elections, even if you're not doing student council, but you want to vote your officers in, make sure you have clearly defined guidelines, and please make sure that you have a calendar or something set up so they know the timelines and get parental permission, like we talked about before, for them to participate in it. So we have a parent form that they all sign so they know what their student is getting into, what their requirements are, what their expectations are, things of that nature. But I love the idea of a video. Just talking about the student council, this was the timeline that I was telling you about. We let them know what was taking place when the polls were open. This was our original idea of having an assembly, and then we went to the other idea, but this year we will have individual assemblies and have student body for the entire school, not just officer. But we kept putting this stuff out there for them. Do you want to make a difference? Join us. Become friends with us on Facebook. Keep your club active. It doesn't always have to be something that requires you to be involved with them. The Mustang Leadership Challenge, that was something I put out there. I sat down, I went for every month. What do we want to do for this month? I looked up things that were nationally going on, like National Ice Cream Month or something like that. So try a new flavor, or Earth Day, something of that nature. Students do not have to have administrative approval to join our club, but check with your individual school and see if they do. They are required to maintain a certain GPA, for example, for like NHS. We don't require that, but we do require certain grade levels. A freshman can never be student body president, for example. It's only open to 11th and 12th graders. So that's where we have certain things. Obviously, a 10th grade representative has to be in 10th grade. And I do verify that information. Again, that's where a co-sponsor, I can't encourage it enough, makes a huge difference, because the first year was a big deal. We don't, no pass, no play doesn't affect us in student council in our setting. So we don't really, because it's an optional club, you're allowed to be in it. I do verify grades and make sure my officers are all in good standing in our school. I do check with that with their counselors. But as far as members, it's optional. You're not required to be in it, and they don't take on a leadership role. I was telling you about the summer thing. When I stress planning, I can't stress it enough. So I made it completely optional for the students. This was from last year. I've been meeting with students this year as well. We met once a month over the summer. I had it clearly defined what we were going to work on, setting up our bylaws, what were our requirements going to be. It was the students who came to me and said, student body president should only be a junior or senior. They have to be at our school at least 2 years, things of that nature. The kids came up with these ideas, not me. I helped them set the parameters for it, but it was our student body that was able to come to these meetings. I opened them up to everyone and said, okay, how do we want to make this successful? What do we want to do to have our club be all it can be? And that's what we did. We spent the summer. Some months I had 10 students, other months I had 20, and then some I had 2, and that was okay. We came up, we had a set plan, we worked on where our weaknesses were. I did that self-reflection, and that's how we worked on improving our club. Which brings us to our last part, our do's and don'ts. When you are creating your clubs, plan, plan, plan. I can't emphasize this enough. Things will go wrong, just like they do when you're teaching a lesson. Some lessons that you think are just going to be a home run fall completely flat. So try to plan as much as possible so you know what your goals are for the year. Consider a co-sponsor. I've addressed that multiple times. It's just wonderful to have another adult, another mind. There's something you might think is acceptable, and they're like, oh, no, that's not going to work, or something you don't even consider, and it's a brilliant idea, such as what Alicia suggested with the videos. Keep a calendar. Know where you're going. Put in the school break days, put in the testing days so you don't book a meeting and then realize that you have to change it. Utilize social media if you're able to. It's a great resource. Your students are using it, so use it with caution, but if you use it wisely, it can really work for you. Review what works and what didn't for your school year. Every year you should be willing to grow and improve